the influencer network. For months, they looked like just another group of young professionals boarding first-class flights out of Heathrow, dressed in designer clothes, flashing luxury handbags, smiling for selfies at airport lounges. They posted from Dubai, sipped cocktails poolside, and lived lives that screamed success. But behind the filters was a different story, one built not on brand deals or beauty clinics, but on dirty cash and international crime. This wasn't a music video. It was a £100 million money laundering operation, and the people behind it weren't cartel foot soldiers. They were British influencers, models, beauticians, and fitness instructors, recruited to smuggle criminal profits out of the UK under the radar. Between 2019 and 2020, more than 83 flights departed Heathrow carrying luxury suitcases stuffed with undeclared cash. Some couriers made multiple trips, each carrying up to £500,000, vacuum-sealed and concealed in designer luggage. The couriers were clean, professional-looking, and highly presentable, exactly the kind of people customs agents wouldn't question. And that was the point. It was one of the most sophisticated laundering networks ever uncovered on British soil, orchestrated by a shadowy Emirati kingpin and protected by layers of encrypted communication, false receipts, and financial fog. But the system couldn't stay invisible forever. In late 2020, after months of surveillance, Border Force, HMRC, and the National Crime Agency moved in. Flights were intercepted, phones were cloned, hotel records were cross-referenced, and soon the illusion of wealth collapsed, revealing a system where Instagram fame met organized crime. From Leeds to Heathrow. It didn't start in Dubai, it started in Leeds, with a woman named Michelle Clark. At first glance, Clark was an ordinary recruitment consultant, but behind closed doors, she was the bridge between Britain's underworld and the clean faces that would carry its money. Described as discreet, efficient, and deeply trusted, Clark was one of the first to be enlisted by the operation's Dubai-based mastermind, Abdulla al-Falasi. Her job? Simple on paper, find people who looked the part. She wasn't recruiting criminals, she was targeting the kind of individuals who could pass undetected: models, beauticians, fitness coaches, airbrushed influencers with thousands of followers and no criminal records. People who could blend in on a business-class flight, walk through Heathrow security, and smile past the customs desk like they were heading to a luxury spa weekend. Clark made the connections. She arranged the paperwork. And she made sure the couriers understood the rules. Never check in cash. Carry it yourself in your cabin luggage. Don't talk too much, especially to airport staff. If questioned, you're going to a health retreat or influencer summit. And once you land, hand everything off. No questions asked. She was the logistics hub in a growing operation, earning thousands in cuts per delivery while staying several layers removed from the physical cash. Over time, Clark became the go-to fixer, building a stable of couriers who could fly out on 48 hours notice. Between October 2019 and July 2020, she personally arranged or assisted with at least 16 separate trips, each time making sure the courier had the right look, the right story, and the right bag. But Clark's quiet efficiency wouldn't last forever, because the more couriers she recruited, the harder it became to hide the pattern. And Heathrow's security teams had already started watching. First class and full of cash. The brilliance of the operation was in its simplicity. While most smuggling schemes involved false compartments or fake paperwork, this network relied on confidence, image, and silence. Couriers were booked onto business-class flights from Heathrow to Dubai. They traveled light, except for their luggage, which was anything but ordinary. Inside their designer suitcases, neatly stacked vacuum-sealed bags of cash, each wrapped in carbon paper to deflect airport scanning tech. Often up to £500,000 per trip, packed tight and heavy. They flew Emirates, Qatar Airways, and Etihad. Upon arrival in Dubai, the process was just as slick. A contact would meet them at a 5-star hotel, usually the J's Marriott Marquis or a nearby suite booked in advance. The money was handed off, and within 48 hours, they were flying back home. Each courier was paid between £3,000 and £8,000 per journey, depending on experience and reliability. Some made the trip just once. Others flew as many as 10 times in a single year, transporting millions in clean British notes, all undeclared, all off the books. To build trust, the organizers used a WhatsApp group nicknamed Sunshine and Lollipops. A secret chat filled with motivational posts, coded language, and emojis. It was equal parts loyalty club and operational channel. Couriers shared tips on avoiding suspicion and praised each other after successful deliveries. One courier even bragged about earning more in a weekend than most do in a year. To the outside world, their Instagram stories showed beach clubs, skyline selfies, and endless luxury. But to the authorities, it was becoming clearer. This wasn't influencer life. It was international crime in heels and sunglasses. By summer 2020, HMRC and Border Force agents were tracking names, collecting footage, and slowly unraveling the flight patterns. Because while influencers were building fake lives online, investigators were building real criminal profiles offline. Abdulla al-Falasi's £100 million network. At the center of the entire laundering operation stood a man few in the UK had ever heard of, Abdulla Mohammed al-Falasi. A 46-year-old Emirati national, al-Falasi wasn't some shadowy figure hiding in back rooms. He moved in wealthy Dubai circles, had property assets, and lived like a legitimate businessman. But behind that respectable facade, he ran what prosecutors would later call a highly sophisticated global cash smuggling system. Operating between late 2019 and July 2020, al-Falasi personally coordinated 83 courier trips from the UK to the UAE, smuggling an estimated £104 million in cash, almost all of it derived from drug trafficking, tax fraud, and other organized crime activity. He paid his couriers well, gave them first-class treatment, and operated the network like a corporate supply chain. Each courier had a handler. Each handler had a set route, and all communication was done through burner phones, encrypted apps, and coded messages. Al-Falasi kept himself insulated. He never personally handled the money. Instead, he managed teams who would meet the couriers in Dubai, receive the suitcases, and funnel the money into a complex laundering system that included gold dealers in Dubai and Africa, offshore shell companies, cryptocurrency wallets, and false invoicing networks tied to legitimate-looking import/export businesses. His network was designed to be invisible, deniable, and fast. For nearly a year, it worked perfectly. But the growing number of trips, sometimes 3 or 4 couriers leaving Heathrow in the same week, began to raise red flags. And once British authorities identified Clark and her early recruits, it was only a matter of time before the entire system collapsed inward. In 2022, following a multi-agency investigation and extradition requests, al-Falasi was arrested and later sentenced in a UK court to 9 years in prison. He had moved over £100 million in physical cash in less than 10 months, but in the end, it was frequent flyer miles, text messages, and hotel records that brought him down. Because even the best-built laundering networks leave footprints, especially when they're built around people who post everything online. The mistakes that exposed the network. For nearly a year, the smuggling ring operated without a hitch. Couriers flew out with smiles and designer bags, returned with empty suitcases and thousands in hand. The system ran like clockwork until it didn't. The downfall began the way many criminal schemes do, with one careless mistake. In early 2020, Border Force officers at Heathrow grew suspicious of a woman traveling alone in business class. Her luggage seemed unusually heavy. Inside, they found nearly £2 million in vacuum-sealed bundles, wrapped in carbon paper and stuffed into brand-name luggage. The arrest triggered a review of flight data, baggage weights, and frequent traveler logs. Patterns began to emerge. the same couriers flying back and forth between London and Dubai, multiple trips booked by the same agents, repeated hotel bookings at the JW Marriott in Dubai under linked names. Worse for the network, many of the couriers couldn't resist bragging online. Investigators began scraping social media for trip dates, locations, and photos. One courier posted champagne toasts on the Emirates A380. Another tagged a Dubai beach resort on the same day she was caught on CCTV delivering a suitcase. Vacation selfies became timestamps. Filters became evidence. WhatsApp chats from the group Sunshine and Lollipops were recovered. While much of the conversation was coded, key phrases revealed logistical details: pickup points, currency amounts, drop-offs, and payment schedules. In parallel, airline loyalty programs played an unexpected role. Some couriers collected frequent flyer miles, and investigators used those records to prove repeat travel patterns, often just days apart, with no legitimate business purpose. With every flight, every post, every chat, the walls closed in. By mid-2020, authorities had built a full picture of the network: names, routes, handlers, and payments. What had started as a small operation built on trust and glamour had turned into a paper trail of arrogance and repetition. And now, the arrests were just beginning, when Instagram fame meets real-time jail. By late 2020, the NCA, HMRC, and Border Force had quietly assembled a full dossier. They knew the couriers, they knew the recruiters, and they knew the man pulling strings from Dubai. What came next was a coordinated sweep across the UK, from London to Leeds to Manchester. Homes were raided, phones were seized, social media accounts were taken down, and for many of the influencers who once flaunted poolside views and shopping bags, the next stop was a holding cell. Among those arrested were Michelle Clark, the recruiter from Leeds; Tara Hanlon, a 30-year-old social media manager who smuggled nearly £5 million over 5 trips; Carly Marie Wilford, a beautician from West Yorkshire; Harpreet Kaur, another courier caught red-handed at Heathrow with £2 million in vacuum-sealed cash. Many of the couriers claimed they didn't know the full scope of the operation. Some said they believed it was for legitimate business, but the court didn't buy it. The evidence was overwhelming: frequent cash-heavy flights, burner phones and WhatsApp chats, consistent use of 5-star hotels in Dubai, lies on customs forms and tax records. In a series of trials between 2021 and 2023, more than 11 individuals were convicted. Sentences ranged from 2 to 9 years in prison, depending on the number of trips and the level of involvement. The heaviest sentence went to the man behind it all, Abdulla al-Falasi, who was extradited to the UK and given 9 years for masterminding the movement of over £100 million. One judge described the operation as organized crime presented in luxury packaging, all filters, no substance. What shocked many was how normal the participants were. No hardened criminals, no gang tattoos, no violent records, just influencers, fitness coaches, and aspiring entrepreneurs, swept up in the promise of fast cash and luxury flights. But once the hashtags faded, only one thing remained: time. Real prison time. Gold, cartels, and the UAE pipeline. What made this case so disturbing wasn't just the scale of the money moved. It was where the money went and what it was used for. Once the cash arrived in Dubai, it didn't sit in a bank. It moved again, this time through a network of gold dealers, shell companies, and import-export firms across the Middle East and Africa. Investigators believe much of the laundered money was used to buy untraceable gold, often shipped to Ghana, Uganda, and South Africa, where it could be melted, reshaped, and sold back into the legal economy. This tactic, known as trade-based money laundering, turned criminal profit into legitimate-looking revenue with shocking speed. But even more alarming were the whispers behind the scenes. According to multiple law enforcement sources, the funds weren't just drug proceeds from UK gangs. They were linked to major cartel groups, including connections to the Kinahan Organized Crime Group, a powerful Irish cartel with a footprint in Europe, the Middle East, and South America. The UAE, and Dubai in particular, had become a key money laundering hub in recent years. With lax financial oversight, high-end financial services, and no extradition treaties with many Western countries, Dubai offered everything a criminal syndicate needed: luxury lifestyle, clean paperwork, and silence. Even after arrests were made in the UK, little action was taken in Dubai. Falasi himself had operated openly, using hotels, logistics staff, and luxury real estate right under the nose of authorities. Critics accused the UAE of turning a blind eye, allowing Dubai to become a playground not just for influencers, but for cartels, fugitives, and white-collar crime lords. This wasn't just a British story, it was global, and it exposed the cracks in how modern crime crosses borders, not with guns, but with briefcases and boarding passes. Luxury lifestyles, criminal foundations? At first glance, it looked like the dream. Jet-setters boarding business-class flights. Tanned skin, expensive watches, and glittering Dubai skylines. But peel back the filters and you find something else entirely. A multi-million-pound criminal network built on deception, silence, and greed. These weren't hardened gangsters or masked cartel operatives. They were influencers, recruiters, and aspiring entrepreneurs, people who traded likes and luxury for loyalty to something far darker. The smuggling of over 100 million pounds in cash was just the surface. What it revealed was how modern organized crime adapts, using social media, clean faces, and legitimate front companies to move illicit profits without firing a shot. The British authorities eventually caught up. They used airport records, flight data, Instagram posts, and frequent flyer points to break open the case. They jailed couriers, recruiters, and even the Emirati mastermind. But still, many questions remain. How many other influencers got away with it? How many similar operations are running undetected through other airports? And how long will Dubai remain a safe haven for financial crime? In the end, this wasn't about drugs, gold, or even money. It was about trust, in appearances, in image, and in the belief that if you looked successful enough, no one would look deeper. But the courts did. And the sentence was clear. Luxury doesn't clean dirty money, and not every flight to Dubai is for the gram. Some are the last stop before a prison cell.